So you guys should definitely check those out. And guess what?
They're here.
They're here. I'm going to bring them on in. And everyone, if you would please give a warm welcome virtually to Mark and Sarah. Hopefully it will finally work. I don't know why it's being so finicky for
Third
them.
time's a charm. Hey.
Hi.
You made
it. Phone trouble.
Oh, don't worry at all about it. This has at least happened one other time so far.
Yeah.
We were doing it on my phone, and then it would just keep exiting out, and then we just switched to Sarah's phone, and it worked immediately.
I guess she has the favor from God.
Clearly.
With her phone.
Clearly.
So, yeah, thanks for hanging in there and pushing through and getting on.
So sorry. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, for people maybe watching that haven't heard of you guys, could you share a little bit about yourselves and some of the, I guess, highlights of what you want people to know?
Yeah. Well, I'm originally from North Carolina, and Sarah's originally from Toronto, Canada. Yeah, fun fact. We've been married 10 years. 10 years this past December, which is awesome. And yeah, we've been writing songs and, worship and all that stuff for pretty much about 10 years.
11.
11?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Ever since we started dating. Back when we were young and agile. Before children. But yeah, and then now we live in Franklin, Nashville area, and we've been here for the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, and we worship lead together, sing, songwrite.
Mm-hmm.
So we're a duo.
Yep. we live out kind of like a little bit outside of Franklin, in like a horse farm country. So our little internet tries its little hardest.
I'm imagining like some antenna like on a horse.
I love it. But we're here. It feels like the signal's good.
We got in a good room.
Yeah. That's great.
Nice.
As long as the horse doesn't move.
Exactly.
Right?
No one opened the phone.
Listen, I live out here in Old Hickory, Tennessee, and we have the exact, just on any given day, you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. Did it snow where you're at?
No. Did you guys get snow?
No, but like some friends of ours were like, did you see the forecast on like the weather app? Like there's like flurries for last night, which is literally insane.
Yeah. But, not about it. I know Wisdom had snow yesterday.
Yeah, we had 2 inches yesterday morning.
No.
That is so very Kansas City.
Literally, I took out my like snow scraper thing. I'm like, why am I having to use this right now? It's almost May.
Like offended.
Yeah.
No.
That's hilarious.
I love it.
So one thing I was wanting to ask you guys, since you've been doing music together your whole like married and dating lives, if let's say tomorrow you wake up and for whatever reason, you can't do music anymore. You can't write songs, you can't record. What would you guys do together? You may have different answers.
That's a good question.
That's a really hard question.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, I think we both have like very pastoral hearts. And obviously we love music, we love songwriting, we love all of that. And potentially more than all that, we, love kind of the idea of like mothering and fathering people in that. Because you have a lot of people swinging for the fences, and either they're on their own or they don't know what to do, or, they don't know step A, B, and C, right? They know what it looks like to be at like K and H, but they don't know kind of those beginning steps, which obviously y'all are a epic resource for those, you know, A, B, C, D, E steps. But all that to say, we both have big hearts to, you know, kind of like help lead those coming behind us along. You know, kind of give what you never got type scenario. So I know for me at least, I would, and it doesn't have to look necessarily in like a, I don't necessarily mean like a church sense, like pastor, but like, you know, just kind of like some type of shepherd, and kind of like, you know, uncle, father figure, whatever you want to call it, for like younger artists. You know, we're not necessarily like super old, but we're not necessarily like, you know, some like insanely talented like 17-year-old kid who's like got all the talent in the universe, but they don't necessarily know where to go, you know. So some sense of like, you know, pastoring, coach, shepherd thing.
I feel like Sarah's answer is going to be like skydiving or something.
I was going to say that was really beautiful and powerful and moving. I was going to simplify a little and say, I don't know, we're like such high communicators.
Yeah.
Very big verbal processors. We have a lot to say. We have a lot of thoughts. I was thinking like some podcast or like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, we both
us
love
writing,
books
or I don't know, speaking.
Yeah.
We're really, we have a lot to say. We talk each other's faces off. So
yeah,
something to do with communication.
Right. Yeah.
So my question would be, why not do that now?
That's a great.
We've actually been thinking about that.
We have been thinking about that, and just, you know, the whole like to your point, you're like, why not do that now? You know, we're literally on a tool that you could do it very easily, obviously. Both the phone and obviously what we're literally doing right now. So the answer is yes. Because honestly, it all goes together. You know, it's never just about the music, just about the songs. That's like this amount of the greater, you know, reason for being in all of it. So.
Now, let me ask you, because you guys, weren't you playing a lot, like touring and all that pre-COVID?
Yeah, we were super, very involved in our church back in North Carolina, and then when we moved to Nashville, we were kind of in that whole like writing a ton, putting together a project phase, all of that, and then obviously COVID happens, everything shuts down. But people kept on making music, of course. But it's kind of music that we were talking with our friend at like a writing thing 2 nights ago, and he was saying how he's like, yeah, it's like he's like, you write all this music and you're not going to tour, like these songs are going to kind of expire when you would tour them or whatever, you know. So he's like, they're just kind of like floating out in the ether. But so the answer is yes. But it's kind of, you know, things are coming around. I feel like.
Oh yeah.
So.
Well, what would you say? Oh, sorry. What would you say each of your strengths are when it comes to songwriting?
I would say I'm more of like the lyricist, and I find the melody really quickly.
So she does it all.
No. Mark,
lyrics, melody, she does it all.
I'm
just in the background.
So Mark calls it like the faucet. So it's kind of like this. There's like a window where when the creativity's flowing, it's like a faucet, and I just have to kind of catch it. So I'll just be in this zone where I'm writing. I have to catch the idea quick, voice memo, or sharing with him, and he has to keep up. So that's me, but he is.
Yeah. So she typically like will have, she's like very much like a writer, you know, if she wasn't doing songwriting, you know, she's a very active dreamer. So she has dreams every night, you know, like pages and pages, you know, writes them all down every morning, like all that type of thing. So she's very much like a writer even outside of music. And so she typically already has some form of idea in terms of lyrics. And then I typically, you know, I gravitate towards find a melody on a piano or a guitar. And then we kind of just go from there. I mean, it does happen other ways sometimes.
Yeah,
but that's like the most natural way. But yeah.
See, it's fun.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Do you guys ever feel like I've heard other people describe it like writing songs is sometimes like all of a sudden you know something you didn't know before? Like it's just poof, like all of a sudden there's this whole thing and you're like, wow, I didn't know that I knew this, and it's just all coming out. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to work for it, but not all the time. Sometimes it's just like intuitive, spontaneous download of a song idea, or sometimes it can be like you're driving somewhere and you see a word or whatever, and that's kind of highlighted. So it happens in different ways, but you always have that like sense in your spirit of like, oh, I need to go after this, and then that's when it kind of starts flowing. At least for me.
The best moments though are the just like, it's been 5 minutes and you just like have a song, like and there's no way to try. You can't try to do that.
Right.
It doesn't exist to try to do that. It's just one of those things that happens every once in a while, and you're just like, oh, I guess this is done. It's been like 10 minutes, you know, whatever. It's just been really, it is a really awesome feeling. But it's more of like that like kind of like miraculous feeling than it is like a muscle that you can exercise, you know. You're just like, this came out of absolutely nowhere. But
and then, for example, we had a song last week that it was just the chorus idea that I had written years ago.
Right.
And so that was sitting for years, and then we were kind of working on stuff together, and it came back up, and I'm like, why don't we try working on this? And then we finally finished the song.
Right.
And it was like, it had been like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, later.
Between the chorus and the verse and the bridge. But
those aren't the fun ones.
Yeah. So there's miracle moments in songwriting, miracle songs.
Right.
But most of them are muscle.
Right.
Kind of developed. But
it's true.
But it's fun.
So you guys have released a lot of music comparatively, you know, to other independent artists, and I think you guys have multiple millions of combined streams with your music. What are some tips that you might share with, you know, like an up and coming artist and songwriter trying to do this, and maybe they're getting ready to release their first single this year?
Well, I would say to figure out how to get in touch with you. I'm just kidding.
That's easy.
Yeah. Send Wisdom an email. Send him a message on Instagram. No, I mean, I'm joking, but also very serious. You know, I think we haven't been in this seat since the beginning of like that kind of like, it's so big. There's like 8 billion songs released a day on 17 million different platforms. You know, that overwhelmed thing, you know, just like, this is so big. My song is probably not going to get heard by anyone besides my mom and my great aunt. You know, whatever. But thinking back to that, you know, I think one, having a plan is like, even if it's like 3 bullet points, having a plan is 3 bullet points is better than no bullet points. So, you know, definitely having a plan. And then also like, I mean, both of us are, but ever since moving to Nashville, which is a very, you know, you think, oh, it's like music industry capital, especially in the, you know, like people who love Jesus world. And it is, and we've met some of the most friendly, kind-hearted, who, you know, are like in the thick of the industry, like all these things, big machine companies, and they're all so kind and sweet. And I would say one of the biggest things is just reaching out for help. You know, I think as artists, sometimes we think we need to do it on our own, which is hilarious. But
Because artists are so used to having to do it.
right. But like, you know, it doesn't mean that someone's gonna. Typically, in the beginning, someone doesn't find you and champions you. That's just kind of how it just doesn't really happen that way. Eventually, I believe, you know, that can happen to anyone. But I'm a huge proponent of, if you see someone or are hearing someone that, you know, you're kind of admiring or whatever, reach out. There's no time wasted in sending an email, in sending a message over Instagram, just like you said, you know. And I think even you guys would be someone to be on the receiving end of this, but also it could be someone who they like the producing, or someone who works for this company, like, hey, I've got a song, I want to release it, like, do you have any advice? Like, the likelihood that someone's going to be like, no, I don't have time to talk to you, is literally like this. Like, people are, at least what we found, living here, people are, maybe they don't have a lot of time, but people are so sweet and so willing to, like, share out of the capacity they have. So I would say step one, have a plan, and step two, definitely don't, like, rush into it, because that's not helpful for anyone. That's not helpful to you or your listeners. And reaching out to people that could maybe help you or point you in the direction of someone who could help you. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say the whole knowing your need, and asking for help with that need. I think that's been an area where we've had to, like, really learn how to do that, especially since moving into more of a creative hub and city.
Right.
So even though we've been with people who can help, when they've asked, you know, what do you need? Often we didn't even really know how to answer that. So actually familiarizing yourself with what you actually need as an artist, as a creative, what resources you need, and then growing the confidence to, and honestly the humility to be able to ask for help with that need.
Right.
That's been the hardest thing for us, and we are still, like, learning how to move through that.
Right. Because when you meet people and they're like, when you meet people that could help you, and they're like, so what do you guys need? You know, kind of having some answers, obviously somewhat helpful. But yeah.
Been just pieces of our journey.
And it's, you know, it's all relationship. It's all, you know, whether it's about a song, you're releasing your first single, or, you know, writing or anything, like, the more, you know, the whole, like, oh, quantity isn't a big deal, but at the same time, quantity can be relationships, you know, amounts of relationships, the degree of those relationships. So having relationships of people that, you know, no one can become your champion unless you meet them first, right? So people are everything. Yeah.
And also, like, relational always comes before transactional. At least for us, it's been, like, a big
Preach it.
big deal. Because when you work with other creatives, that tends to be the temptation, is to make it more transactional. Not to say that business stuff doesn't happen, it does, but there's just an order of importance, in our opinion.
Right.
And the relational always trumps over the transactional for us. And honestly, like, we've seen so many times where you meet with someone and it's, like, really relational, but there's, like, barely any transactional in terms of, like, a business exchange. But then somehow, since you pursue the relationship, the Lord really honors that. And it comes full circle down the road.
Oh, totally.
Or they're like, I know someone who actually can help you in this way. And so building a relational network instead of just kind of a a business.
Absolutely.
You
Well,
know,
well, the relational is the fuel.
it
It's
really is.
fuel to everything else.
Mhm.
That's is such a long-winded answer to your question.
But yeah, so
But yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
I think all of that is great advice, especially what you said, Sarah, the like knowing what you need. I think maybe especially for most artists who are just getting started, that's the biggest real hurdle is like, I don't know how to distribute my music. I don't know who to work with as a producer. You just don't know. And so the more that you can connect with other creatives and other people, they can help you and kind of fill the gaps and help you see what you don't know, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like growing your voice as
Mm-hmm.
an artist, as a person. That's kind of how you grow into knowing your need.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it's taken us a while, and we're still learning that.
Yeah.
So
And to some
there's a lot of grace.
that kind of like healthy boldness, you know, of like, you know, asking the questions, even if you're like, I don't know how the response is going to be, but you know.
Mm-hmm. Which really does require humility.
Yes.
Like it's so funny that those two things go hand in hand. Like being bold comes with it has to come with the humility of being willing to be crushed by somebody else, you know?
Correct.
It's just some people aren't ready to take on, but
Yeah.
it's a part you got to grow into. Tell people where they can find you and about something that you're excited about that you have coming up or whatever.
Well, pretty much everything we do is our names, just Mark and Sarah Tillman. We're in all the places, all the things.
Are you on TikTok?
What?
Are you on TikTok?
Okay, this is, you know, so we're both 31, so, you know, in TikTok world, we're like 85, right? Like our kids who
Mm-hmm.
are 5, he's basically 6. Our son is literally closer to TikTok relevant than we are, you know, right? Which is scary. Like, as in, like, he would do it sooner than we would do it backwards, you know what I mean? Matt. Anyways, we recently actually got one and are, you know,
We're going to do some dances.
fumbling our way through it. But, you know, I think the thing about, like, with content, I think one of the biggest things you can do is just not think too hard about it, you know? Just literally, I mean, you know, have a little bit of an idea, like, but like, don't like like with the way these platforms are now, like overthinking. If you overthink, you're probably just not gonna send it out there, you know. And you know, you just never know how much it can bless someone or whatever. So not overthinking it. Not that you asked that, but we are on TikTok.
Well, that's good. Actually, when you guys were trying to connect, that's exactly what we were talking about is don't overthink content, you know? Yeah. And I think also if you look back at Facebook, I mean, Facebook, people thought, oh, it's only for college students.
Yeah.
But now everybody and their mom and grandmother and great grandmother is on it.
Grandmother. It is so true.
But things coming up.
Things coming up. So in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. It's almost Friday, so 2 weeks. A friend of ours named Ben Thompson, who also goes by Neon Feather. We did a collaboration on one of our songs, our songs that we released last year. And it is very fun, very...
It's very TikTok worthy.
It is very TikTok worthy. It's one of those things where you're just like, oh, we're kind of like, you're almost like dating yourself. Not like dating, like, you know, husband and wife date. But I mean, like, you're like, yeah, you're like, you know. Anyways, we're excited about it. It comes out in either 2 or 3 weeks. But that's super fun.
Awesome.
And then, yeah, we're basically writing a ton right now for next project. So we are in that lovely, lovely stage. So, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, you guys can find their music on all the streaming platforms under Mark and Sarah Tillman. Um, we had the privilege of working with them on a few of their songs, and their music is awesome, but more importantly, their heart is awesome, and their passion for Jesus, I think, is very contagious. So follow them on Instagram and TikTok and Spotify. Uh, Cool. Any last word of encouragement you want to share?
Yeah, I guess Mark and I have been kind of talking a lot about how, especially like on Instagram, social media worlds, you want to share stuff, but you don't want it to feel slimy. At least that's for me, as someone who, Mark has like a little less hard of a time with this. I think I'm way more emotionally attached to everything, which can be good and hard. But how to put yourself out there, not even yourself out there, but what the Lord's giving you out there, without it feeling forced or contrived or inauthentic. And yeah, so something that's really helped me, I think that sometimes can be artists' like challenge is like I want to share what the Lord's giving me, but I don't want this to feel inauthentic, with like the heart of what He's given me. Is that the Lord's kind of really spoken to us? It's not about platform; it's about an altar that you're building. It's about an altar, and yeah, when you kind of have that mindset, you're definitely more protective of that altar that you've built for the Lord. And there's some things that are private that don't always need to be shared, for sure. There's those private encounter moments with the Lord. But other things like are a deposit that you get to release of your altar with the Lord for other people to encounter Him. And so I feel like the Lord's just challenged me specifically and us to not always like withhold those encounter moments out of fear of it feeling inauthentic or disingenuous. That actually there's so many people, especially now in this season, where there's just been so much turbulent transition on every level and layer of life and the world, nationally, globally, that people are literally just dying, are hungering so intently for an encounter with the Lord. So to not withhold that. And yeah, it's not so much about a platform, it's about an altar that you're building, and that you get to invite other people into that encounter with the Lord. So yeah.
And when you have that shift, like when it's not a platform, like it really kind of takes the pressure off, Because like when it's a platform, all of a sudden you're entertaining. There's nothing wrong with entertainment. I love entertainment. That's great. If you're not trying to entertain and you're just trying to share kind of what the Lord has been speaking to you, or in whatever form, song, encouraging word, whatever, I wouldn't say a platform is the best way to release that. But when you kind of have that, that's not entertainment to me. So when you kind of have that shift of like, oh man, this is just like an altar, and I want people to be transformed through Him, and me saying yes to this, it really takes the pressure off, which is beautiful. But
so yeah, we've kind of come to that place.
Yeah.
Or we're coming to that place more and more. So yeah, just will be a good time.
Wow, ending with a bang. That's really cool. Yeah, I love that. I think that's what I'm going to title this afterwards, because I think for any artist, like what you're saying, that switch in perspective is everything, because it also goes from being focused on other people to being focused on like directly like a vertical relationship with God. And even just the word platform is literally about other people, like being elevated above others, versus an altar being pointing strictly towards something else. So even that imagery is just so good. Thanks for sharing that.
Of course. Yeah, for Mark and I, like the vehicle of worship, of what we create, of what we write, it's just that. It's a vehicle, and it's always driving the heart of the Lord to people. And it's this back and forth ebb and flow between the presence of God and people. But that's the hardest thing, to keep it a vehicle, honestly. But once you can kind of see it like that, it definitely takes the performance pressure off, and it kind of reorders the priorities, like why we're doing what we're doing.
And then the sky's the limit, honestly, because it's about you're just putting it all out there in a different way.
Wow. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to talk to us today. It was so cool to hear from you guys and to hear more about what you're doing together and in Tennessee and just the next season that you're stepping into. And we can't wait to see and hear what you put out next. You said 2 weeks from now?
2 or 3, I believe. It's. I guess it's 2.5 since it would be a Friday. So.
Okay, cool. So what is that? May 7th?
Or the 14th. I'll let you know.
14th. Okay, cool. Yeah, let us know so that we can promote it for you.
I'll let you know.
But yeah, thank you guys. It's been awesome talking to you, hearing more about you, your stories.
Yeah, great to see you guys.
Thank you so much for having us and being so gracious about our
Technical difficulties.
That's the world we live in, man.
Right.
One day it all works great. The next day when you actually need it, nothing.
The horse moves and it doesn't work.
Well, we hope you guys, have a great day. Thank you all so much for watching. If you've got a project coming out and you want some help growing your impact and influence with integrity, we'd love to talk to you. You can send us a DM here on Instagram. Bye, everybody.
See ya.